shooting, looting, and spreading panic has unfortunately been going on for several weeks in Bangui, but it has to be said that this past weekend was the most violent that we have seen so far. Even mortars were used, and in fact one exploded in a building, wounding several children, three of which in fact had to be amputated later at the hospital. We saw people in panic trying to get away from the most affected parts of the town, which was not an easy task given the fact that taxi drivers refused to approach the dangerous areas. So many people, women in particular, were seen walking for long distances, more than an hour, with a baby in one hand and a bag with most valuable belongings in the other hand, trying to find refuge with relatives living in safer neighborhoods or even to leave the town altogether. We even saw small boats, pirogues, crossing the Bangui River, transporting people to Zongo, which is a small town in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And later on Sunday, we made a tour of the main hospitals of the town. What we saw at the Hôpital de l'Amitié, which is a hospital that was recently assisted by SSE, is extremely worrisome. In fact, I wonder whether we can still speak of a hospital or we should rather consider it a camp for displaced people. Something like 1,000 people who had fled the affected areas of the town had found refuge there, occupying the rooms, forcing many patients to leave, even though it's doubtful whether the treatment had been completed. We managed to supply the place with drinking water, but hygienic conditions are far from being suitable for a health structure, and the risk for epidemics is real. And later we found that the central fuel depot, which supplies all the gas stations in town, had been looted by armed men. So we are afraid that a shortage of fuel is coming up in the next few days as well. Since the day the conflict reached the capital, we put all our efforts on reinforcing the capacity of the town's health structures. Surgical and other medical material, medication, medical consumables were donated to the main hospital and to certain health centers. And in addition, we supplied the main hospitals with drinking water and fuel for their generators. We also provided all necessary support to the Central African Red Cross volunteers in line with a contingency plan that had been established before the event. The National Red Cross was supplied with first aid material, vehicles, communication equipment, and body bags for the management of mortal remains. At this point, I would like to stress that the National Red Cross volunteers have been doing a remarkable job. In most cases, they are the only ones who operate in affected parts of the town, sometimes while military operations are still ongoing, and their commitment to save lives is admirable, and I think they deserve the recognition and the respect of everybody, and above all, they deserve to be allowed to perform their humanitarian work in full security. And this is again a legal obligation that binds all weapon bearers. The same goes, of course, for hospital and other health personnel, as well as the personnel of humanitarian organizations. Overall, what we're doing is a lot, considering the security conditions under which we are obliged to operate. At the same time, I cannot help feeling that we would like to do so much more, considering the humanitarian need, not only in Bangui, but in the rest of the country as well. That is why I would like to stress once again the need for an immediate improvement in security conditions throughout the country so that ICRC and other humanitarian organizations can regain access to remote rural areas, evaluate the humanitarian situation there, and respond to the needs. And I'm afraid that this cannot wait anymore. It has to be done before it is too late and before we find ourselves having to deal with what could be a major humanitarian disaster.